mass start, and I had a double pole about 100 meters to start the course with everyone else, and I ended up breaking that one of the poles off the start line. I ended up throwing the poles off to the side anyway, and I skied about 5 kilometers into the race with the lead pack without poles, and it was just so thrilling. I just kept it going and I said, well, hey, maybe I can win this thing. It'll be amazing. To not have poles. And so I took the lead. It was a 10K, and I took the lead at about 5K in, and one of my skis ended up breaking in half. And I had about 3 kilometers left, and I had, no poles and one good ski. And I thought, this is just unbelievable.
Episode 365, Andy Liebner talks about Nordic skiing and the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast, brought to you by 180 Tech. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Curt Linville.
Hey friends, Curt here. I have Andy Liebner with us today. Andy is a ski coach for Nordic ski racing for the U.S. Olympics. Matter of fact, he just got back from PyeongChang, Korea, and I'm interested to hear how that went. But he also is the founder of the United States Ski Pole Company. And so we're going to be talking about Nordic ski racing and a few other things, as well as what it's like to start a new business in the outdoor space. So, Andy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, man, so you have quite a history behind you. For starters, let's talk about where you grew up, because I think that's pretty unique. So you grew up in Soldotna, Alaska. So what was that like?
Yeah, Soldotna, Alaska is a wonderful place. It's a big fishing town in the summer, and it's a little bit quieter in the winter. But as a high school student there, it doesn't get much better for opportunities, and running and skiing trails are just fabulous. Anybody who's ever been there and trained there, they'd know it. Salteshi Trails has got over 30 kilometers of trail now. It's world class. So it's worth the opportunity to go there sometime.
So help me out with my my geography just a little bit. Where in Alaska would I find Soldotna?
Yeah, Soldotna is on the Kenai Peninsula. It's in the center of the state, right on the southern tip. So there's a peninsula that kind of hangs out underneath Anchorage geographically south, and it takes about 2.5 hours to drive there on Highway 1.
So how far are you from Seward?
Seward, it's about 75 miles.
So fairly close to Seward. Now, is Soldotna north or south of Seward?
It's actually due west of Seward. It's on the other side of the peninsula.
Okay. All right. Cool. And so people always want to know what the weather's like in Alaska, so I might as well ask, what was the weather like growing up in Alaska?
The weather, it has 4 seasons just like everywhere else. 4 beautiful seasons. The summertime is, peak sunlight, and it's great because you can do stuff all the time. It's not such a bad thing to have light all the time when you're out late or fishing or out running on the trails. Like, you always got sunlight, so it's a little bit safer for being on the roads, for being on the trails and animals around. And then the fall and spring are just like everywhere else. You have, colder weather, either warming or cooling. And then the wintertime, you have a little more darkness, but still that brings and keeps the cold longer as well. So I just really like being in the 4-season area.
Oh, yeah. And you're on the coast there, which moderates the climate a lot compared with farther inland in Alaska, right?
Yep, slightly. Fairbanks has probably the biggest swing with temperature ranges because they're so far inland. So they have some real peak, record-breaking temperatures there with the colds and the heats too. They're over 100 every year in the summer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
So, what brought you down to Michigan, where you are now?
I had some family down here that I thought it would be more convenient to be near family again, but we had a lot of connections with manufacturing and just being more centrally located in the United States. If I was to pick a place that would be the easiest to live and connect with people and have some common interests with, I thought Michigan was a good place to just start and found a business.
Well, tell us about where you are in Michigan, because Michigan has a lot of variety too. So your location
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Michigan, describe that for us.
Yeah, Michigan is a really interesting state in regards to its possibilities and what you can do there. And from Detroit all the way to Ironwood, that's a long drive. Now, if you can believe it, it takes over 10 hours if you're lucky, maybe close to 11 or 12 with weather to get from one side of the state to the other. There are very few states outside of Alaska that take that long to drive through. So there's two peninsulas in Michigan. There's the Upper Peninsula and there's the Lower Peninsula. And another interesting fact about both peninsulas is that they're both surrounded by water on both sides, different lakes on both sides. So the Southern Peninsula has Lake Huron on the east side and Lake Michigan on the west side. And the Upper Peninsula has Lake Superior, which is the complete border along the southern or the northern coast, and then Lake Michigan's on the southern coast for the most part. So we're located right at the tip of the Lower Peninsula. So the Lower Michigan looks like a mitten, and there's a bridge called Mackinac Bridge. It's right at connecting the Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula. That we're about 16 miles from that bridge on the east side. So we get a lot of lake effect. We just got 2 to 3 inches last weekend. We're supposed to get 8 to 10 inches here tomorrow and the next day. And today is the 2nd of April. So, it's nice to have some good long seasons here as well. And it's good for our product testing too. We have snow right here in the parking lot. I can make a new pole or basket fitting or a strap unique thing that's never been done, and we can test it right out here in the parking lot. And there's very few places that actually make a product and you can test it right out the front door.
Nice.
So
just out of curiosity, having been on the coast in Alaska and then being sandwiched between the lakes in Upper Michigan, which one has the more favorable weather cycles, you think?
Recently in Alaska, it's been pretty warm, and the the winters are not predictable. So I'd say Michigan is more dependable on the weather, and it's being remotely distant when you're in Alaska, it's difficult to just get in your car and drive, a couple states where there is different weather. So I'd say it's more favorable to be here in Michigan than Alaska. If you're here in like a position like me, like working and traveling and like I'm running a business and doing sales and I have to go to events, it's just more convenient. But if I was to live somewhere, to like retire and just enjoy the weather, I would say Alaska all the way. It's really nice up there and quiet. And once you get out of the cities, like you're out in areas where there aren't any people, and the people that are around have that mindset of they want their own solitude and there's space to enjoy land and life.
Right. Sounds nice. Well, hey, tell us about PyeongChang, the Olympics there. You just got back. So first, what took you to Korea for the Olympics?
Yeah, well, I've been a coach, private coach for several years now, and I was contacted by a Mexican athlete, who's a triathlete and a runner, wanted to go to the Olympics, and first contacted me about just over a year before the PyeongChang Olympics and said he wanted to go, and I said, well, in 5 years, sure, we can do it. And he said, no, I want to go next year, and I said, well, you got a lot of work to do, and I laid it out in front of him what he had to do, and I really didn't expect him to complete that or be as dedicated to it to make it, but he did, and there are people out there that are that dedicated and willing to put in that much work and dedicate their lives to it, and so he ended up qualifying, and I brought him over there as his coach, and he competed in the 15K, and we had a interesting experience, like going over to a country that I've never been to Asia. He'd never been to Asia, and help him out there. The weather was really really cold and windy. It was colder and windier than I would have expected. So it was a lot different than either of us had ever experienced. But for his race day, it was really nice, and there were some nice days there too. That region of Korea is on the northern eastern pocket, so it's not really heavily populated, and there weren't as many fans that were attending this Olympics. So it was almost like there was a bigger following on the media and a lot more coverage, obviously, with millions of people around the world. But there's only about a quarter of the people in the stands that you would normally expect.
Wow.
And I don't know how much of the issues with North Korea, unknowns there, were restricting people from coming, or feeling safe traveling to, the Olympics right on the border of a country with so many question marks about what their potential haphazard issues could be with such an event going on. So we made the most of it and had a great time. The people were so friendly. The local Korean people in the whole country seemed to be pretty keen on having a good Olympics there, and they did a wonderful job. Built some wonderful facilities, just beautiful.
The media made a pretty big deal out of North Korea and South Korea kind of holding up the olive branch for the Olympics. Did you get a strong sensation of that while you were there, or was that more of a media thing?
I think it was more of a media thing. I saw some of the athletes from North Korea. Stood right next to them. We weren't allowed to talk to them or associate at all with them. They actually had bodyguards protecting them from anyone giving them any information outside of their own group. So it was really awkward to have them like around us, but not being able to communicate or even make eye contact with us. It was really hard to describe. I remember one day in the food hall, you have this ominous noise of just people talking and conversations, and it just got quieter and quieter and quieter, and then all the heads started to turn. And at who was walking in, it was the team of North Koreans, and it just got really quiet, like almost to the point of a pin dropping when they first walked in. And people were turning around with tears in their eyes after they were seeing them walk in with bodyguards, and just the look on these people's faces. That it was a great opportunity for these guys to come to the Olympics. And there was a girl too from the cross country skiing, two men and one woman. But just like seeing them restricted there in a place that the politics should be dropped. That's the foundation of the Olympics, is to be able to compete and put all the politics behind. Like, it's not supposed to have any bearing at all, and we can still get along as human beings in sport. And that is the first time I've ever seen or heard of that not taking place. Imagine in 1930s when we had the first African Americans competing in the Olympics in Berlin, and the U.S. not allowing anybody to talk to them. Imagine what that would have been like for those athletes, but for also other athletes around from other teams.
Right.
That's the way it was for us. So that's what I saw from someone being there as a coach and other athletes. It's like I don't even know how to put words around that inner feeling that you had.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. It's often that way, though. The media portrays something with an interpretation that they think is favorable, but when people experience something on the scene, it's not always in direct alignment, with what we hear on the media. We have a ways to go. That's what you're saying. It's nice to hope for a peaceful, relationship, but the reality is we have a ways to go.
Yeah, and it was really great to have them in the competitions. Like, I think everybody wanted them to be there for sure, but there was just some restriction, like resistance, that was coming from the North Korean side of them being allowed to be there. Like, they were allowed to be there, but they weren't allowed to emotionally be there.
Right.
They had a physical presence, but there was just no emotion in any of those people.
They had to keep it under wraps if they felt anything, I'm sure.
Yeah, which you take it for what it is.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about the Olympics in general. Being an Olympic coach, you've had the opportunity to see what the whole thing's about. Is it as awesome as we all hope that it is?
It is. It's the once in a lifetime opportunity that you get to see people, who have worked their whole lives and dedicated so much to making their body a performing machine, and seeing them all compete in a variety of sports. It's just amazing. No matter if you're doing a mile on a treadmill or you're competing in the Olympic mile. Like if you give your best effort, you feel good inside.
Right.
And to see a group of people competing at their best, all excited about it, whether they had a good time or placement or whatever, they're all pretty excited to be there and be able to have the opportunity to compete at their best in the eye of the world. So viewing that from the sideline with the head of a coach, which I've really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed being a coach much more than I ever enjoyed being an athlete. I just love it. I just love seeing people give their all and being proud of themselves for giving their all. Because that's one thing that nobody can ever take away. Like people can finish mid-pack and have the best race of their lives and feel just as good as if they got the gold medal.
I love that. That's beautiful. In our society, in the Western mindset, first place is everything. People forget who got second, which is so sad. But I love what you just said, the spirit of the effort and everyone giving it their all, and that they can feel so rewarded whether they place high or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is cool. I love that kind of an atmosphere. And do you feel like generally there's just a lot of support even between the various sports, between the athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. From team to team and from athlete to athlete, even on the same team, everybody wants the best for each other. And, that has a good heart. That's basically what it comes down to. And I told my athlete when I first started working with him, because he was so concerned about points and qualifying and everything was about points. And I said, I'm not going to coach you if you're just chasing points. I told him that in the beginning. And I said, you have to learn to love the sport. So forget the qualifying standards, forget the points, forget all that. I said, just learn to love to ski, and you will learn to ski better and be more comfortable, and you'll give a better effort. Because if you're competing or training with a mentality of fear, you're always restricting yourself from the love that has a far superior power.
I love that. That's a perfect segue. I would love to talk to you about the Olympics for the rest of the show, but we'd be cheating ourselves by doing that because we also want to hear about Nordic skiing and the love of skiing. And you're not talking about alpine downhill skiing. You're talking about Nordic skiing. So describe, first of all, what that is for those who may not know. And then we want to talk about what makes the sport unique and special.
Yeah, so Nordic skiing is another term for cross-country skiing, and it's really a lifelong skiing sport. You have people in their 70s, 80s, 90s competing in cross-country skiing, or even just outdoor enthusiasts that can cross-country ski. If you snowshoe, you can cross-country ski. If you hike through the woods, you can cross-country ski, and it doesn't cost anything. The daily attendance. If you're, for most places, there are trail fees at cross-country ski areas, and it's important to pay those, not bootleg it, because that supports grooming and more support for trail maintenance and facilities of stuff for cross-country skiing. But those are low compared to the cost of a lift ticket on a daily basis and the hazards of alpine skiing at high speeds with heavy gear. So cross-country skiing is a little safer, and it's a little cheaper, and it can be done in more places than alpine skiing. And you also have a lot more cardiovascular benefits, which will give you more longevity in life. So it's more than just an Olympic sport. It's a lifelong sport that anybody can do, that has the passion, and it's low impact, and they can often do it right in their backyard.
Yeah, that's cool. I do enjoy cross-country skiing, and I've not done as much of it as I would like to. I would like to do more, but here's something interesting. I trained really hard for mountain biking over the last summer, and when winter came, I thought, okay, I have got to be ready for skiing now because I'm in the best shape I've been in years, and I jumped on my alpine skis to downhill, and I was like, nope, didn't work. The type of muscle movement required is so different when you're trying to hold yourself in a position to go downhill. But when you cross-country ski, you've got the full movement kind of like you're hiking or something. So maybe that would translate a little bit better because it's more of an active muscular sport. Am I right about that?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, from mountain biking, the motion, especially with classical style skiing, with your legs, it's there's a lot of more muscles that are going to relate in that direction than alpine. So, yeah.
Cool. So what's your favorite thing about Nordic skiing?
I'd say my favorite aspect of Nordic skiing, like being on skis, is having that mentality that you're your own motor, you're the engine, and you control the speed. And when you crest a uphill, after you've climbed to the top, you can visualize for the moment, that you accomplished this, climbing up however high that hill was. You climbed it, and now you get the benefit of going down the other side, and it's enjoyable, and you feel the wind through your hair, and it's all about just achieving one little goal after another. And you always feel successful after cross country skiing, because you're not just going downhill, you're going uphill as well, and that takes dedication and time, and mastery of techniques, and there's all that to factor in. And so it's really just being your own motor and controlling your speed, and taking in fresh oxygen, being out on the trees and the environment, gets you away from your daily grind, and it's a great stress reliever. People go out and just spend hours out there skiing around with big grins on their face because they love it.
I took a skate skiing class a couple of years ago, and the technique was uber critical to get it right. Is cross-country skiing, Nordic skiing, does that require that much technique? Is there a big learning curve?
It all depends on your skill level. So if you, as a child, were introduced to a lot of kinesthetic and big movements, balance type thing, it will become easier to learn cross-country skiing. If you weren't naturally born with a high skill set for physical exercise and things, it's going to be harder. So there's a couple of things that to factor in. I can't answer that without putting it out there that everybody's born with different skill levels. Just like some people are better at music, some people are better at math, some people are better at art. So it's one of those naturally born abilities that people will naturally have. So it takes skill. Everybody can learn it, but those that are naturally gifted in that area and have been introduced to it, or athletic sports that require a lot of balance and things, they're gonna be a little easier to train and learn technique. So it's just across the board, same type of thing. So
sports vary. Weightlifting has technique as well, but it's a lot about strength, right? But then you have other sports like rock climbing. You think it's a lot about strength, but there's so much technique involved. It's almost more important to have excellent technique. Where would you put Nordic skiing on that spectrum? Is it more about, can you muscle through it, or is it a matter of getting the technique right so you don't have to?
Oh, that's a good question there. I'd say that it's a balance. You really have to balance the two, knowing when to put your strength into the movement. So when to implement, the right amount of power on either your poles or your skis. And, the timing with your technique is the biggest thing. So you have to have both, no doubt. But someone who's just like a bodybuilder and jumps on skis, they're going to struggle.
Right.
They might be the strongest one out there, but if they don't know what direction and when to push, they're just pushing in the wrong directions and the wrong time. So I don't want to answer that incorrectly. So I'll just say it's a fine balance in between to find the perfect formula.
Well, let me tell you my background just a little bit. Extreme novice when it comes to Nordic skiing. I'll just say that up front.
Okay.
I used to do some backcountry trips on Nordic skis with a backpack. I've done that, several times. I used to go out on the weekends and Nordic ski frequently, but I haven't done it in a long time. I built or laid out a trail at our old house in the mountains that contoured the slope, and we could get about a mile loop out of that. And I would do that sometimes just for exercise. But I say all that because no one ever taught me the technique, right? And I find myself struggling by trying to do everything with my arms, knowing that I'm not supposed to. There's got to be a better way. How much of it is arm movement versus leg strength and leg movement?
With classical style skiing, it's different, and in skate skiing, it's different. Arm to leg ratio. And it's that answer is going to vary from coach to coach, from athlete to athlete, and also the conditions. So if you're on icy conditions, you can't get an edge on your ski. Let's say you're skating, you're going to use more of your arms. If it was more deep powder, where your poles might be punching through the snow, and you have more surface contact with your skis, you're going to use more legs. So it really depends on the snow conditions, which is going to dictate your upper body, lower body, power usage. And then in classic style, generally it's more upper body. And I only say that because people are double pulling almost everything now in classic skiing, and they're making courses more difficult. So you'll have to stride and shortening poles and making rules and regulations so people will have to stride more. But there is a lot of leg use and power necessary with striding and kick double pull for classic style. So, again, I can't, there's no definite number like 50-50, 80-20. It's so variable based on the conditions and your the course that you're skiing on that will dictate that.
What I love about what you just said, though, is that it is a full body workout. You're using your whole body, right? And it's going to vary in degree, but that's one of the things that's so unique about it and so cool. So not all sports do that,
Mm-hmm. Yep. You see well-balanced bodies. The athletes have well-balanced in their muscle structure. You see speed skaters and road bikers. They have huge lower bodies, but their upper bodies are just, hardly nothing. They're and if anything, their muscles in their lower extremities have used the upper body muscle as energy over the years. It harvests. If your body doesn't have enough energy within the side of itself, it'll use sources within its own system. So it's actually taken muscle from the upper body and moved it to the lower body for those sports. So just to give you an example of some sports that aren't so balanced, it's pretty obvious with them.
I struggled with a back issue for years that I've grown and healed from, but I wanted to throw this out there. When I cross-country ski, and I already told you what a novice I was, but I would find that the amount of core strength required was surprising. And I would do a mile or so in tough conditions, and I would feel like, whoa, I don't know how much of this I can do, but I knew that if I kept doing it, it seemed to me like it would be an ideal sport for strengthening your back and your core. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yep. It's a huge core strength sport that you benefit from, like in other sports too. You can basically train in cross-country skiing, doing roller skiing and running with poles and all the ski drills that are required to be a good cross-country skier. Those will all relate into any sport. I've known a lot of athletes that have just jumped into professional sports of a whole bunch of different sports, triathlons and swimming events and mountain running and you name it. Like they can fare with the best in those sports that require a big endurance, balance, sustainability, and just high endurance events. Like they can fare with the best with that if they're interested in going after it. From the cross country skiing background, where it's very rare to have someone from another sport jump into cross country skiing and compete with the very best in this sport. It doesn't go so well the other way, but it does relate well into any other area.
Back to our ski season just briefly, my son was saying, man, I feel like my back gets a little bit loosey-goosey when I ski. I need to work on something. I said, well, that's why you got to cross-train. But what you're saying here is that this Nordic skiing kind of is the cross-train. It's the whole body, everything.
Yep, it is. And that's what I teach with the clinics that I do around the country. So with my company and my passion of coaching, and I have a degree in it, I use the opportunity to introduce basic technique to these kids, high school programs, master groups, anyone who's willing to come to these organizations that I'm presenting at to learn. I give this freely, and you can ask anybody who's been to my clinics. They're worth it, and the amount of information I'll provide, from just a quick 5 seconds of watching you ski, like, is really valuable. Like, it really changes people. I have people come up to me throughout the season saying, that tip you gave me right away, and then this is what I learned later in the clinic and everything else. But like those tips you said, like, I've implemented into my season, my skiing, my technique. And that's the best thing that's helped me, and people are really thankful from that. So I really believe in doing that for the goodness of the sport and increasing the popularity of it and increasing the level as well. So I drive around to places that encourage this, and it's a good way of introducing our product to teams and ski shops and clubs and just the general public. Saying these are roller skis that I distribute. These are ski poles that I make, and here, try them out. And while we're trying them out, I give you some great feedback on your own personal technique, and take it or not. But it's some really good stuff that I've learned over the years, and it seems to prove itself really worthy. And all my pupils that have learned from me are understanding of that, and they really appreciate it. So I get a lot of people asking me to come back to the places that I've taught clinics with in the past. And it's really a growing number of followers that are really understanding to what it takes to be a Nordic skier, and they're willing to make some technique adaptations because they see that it's going to help them just not only move faster over the ground, but it also decreases their heart rates, increases their enjoyability. For both classic skating and uphills, downhills, flats, cornering, everything.
That sounds so cool. And I'm going to say this because you probably wouldn't just volunteer it yourself, but I was told, I have heard of you, that you're one of these guys that'll go to the small town that everyone else is ignoring, and you'll put on a clinic to help people out for the love of the sport. And I'd just like to say thank you, because I think it's awesome when people are willing to do that. It's not all about the money in the business for you.
Yep, that's right. Any real coach will tell you they'll stop and help an athlete just for the goodness of the athlete. It goes along the same lines as a doctor is born to help people. And when it comes down to it, if somebody's dying on the street, doctor's going to stop and take care of the patient, whether they're going to get paid or not. That's the best thing. That's the right thing to do. And there's so few people that have the ability to see technique that needs to be addressed. I naturally have a gift with my eye to see flaws, and I don't tell you what the flaws are. I'll tell you what you need to do so they're corrected in a very direct and compassionate way that you'll be able to accept it and make those changes. I've worked with so many people now that I'd like to say I've seen everything, but I'm still seeing new stuff. Everybody's got some unique, techniques that they've learned or just naturally doing. And while I don't teach a standard thing, I look at your body length of limbs and torso and timing of things, and I'm going to give you the best for what's best for you and what you're trying to achieve.
As I'm sure you know from listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast, some of the safest and best snow conditions for backcountry skiing of the whole year happen in the springtime. And Bentgate has the gear you need. Come check out the latest in alpine touring, telemark, NTN, and splitboarding gear. They have brands like Black Crows, DPS, Dynafit, G3, Icelantic, K2, Technica Blizzard, Arc'teryx, Mammoth, Solomon, Volley, Neversummer, Jones, and BCA. And you do need to be safe out there. Bentgate has the latest in avalanche safety gear. They have beacons, airbags, shovels, and probes, and they're ready to help you educate yourself on snow safety. They also rent out gear, so you can get your skis and your boots there, as well as your avalanche safety equipment. What's more, they also have free demo ski days at local resorts, so you can try out the latest gear. Now, how much fun does that sound? So swing by Bentgate in Golden, Colorado, or go to bentgate.com to find your new gear, as well as to get updates on all of their events.
Spring is here and camping season is upon us. Visit our site at 180tech.com for your next camp stove. The 180 stove and smaller 180 flame are combustible fuel stoves, which are designed to burn the fuel that nature provides you at your campsite. There's no need to lug heavy and bulky fuel canisters along with you on the trail. The 180 flame and 180 stove are built in America and have no moving parts to fail you in the field. Check them out at www.180tack.com. Your purchase helps support the Adventure Sports Podcast.
Every time that I interview someone about Nordic skiing, I get excited about the sport, and I think, why am I not doing more of that? You know? Will you do us a favor of sharing a story, a personal experience with Nordic skiing that would help to illustrate, I guess, how cool the sport is and why it is that you love it and do it?
One day up in Alaska, we were training. I was at the University of Alaska Anchorage. We were training up at Hatcher Pass. It was usually early snow up there. So I just remember it being so sunny out. The weather was just perfect. The snow crystal structure was just right, and we had our wax just perfect for classic skiing that day. And life just didn't get any better than what we had right there. Like we were doing intervals, and the team camaraderie of trying to keep up with each other. Like if you didn't keep up, you're going to get dropped. And while each one of us were trying to keep up with each other, we're also pushing each other. So like we had the perfect snow, the perfect scenery, the perfect team, perfect workouts, and we were working so hard, and it just was so fun. I just will never forget those moments where we just, you get out of the van together and you're joking about something, and you're putting your skis in the snow, and somebody throws a snowball, and like you do your warm up, and it can be routine for some people, but other people, like, you cherish those moments because they're not going to be there forever. That things are going to change, and there's never the same setting twice. But just being out there in the middle of the wilderness, and Hatcher Pass is a unique place in itself, where it's an old mining town that's been abandoned for years and years, decades. So the ski trails are kind of interweaved like an old downtown strip and an old mining town. We're just skiing hard through this town that it's just a ghost town, and we're bringing like today's new age like ski stuff like right through the middle of it. It's something about that which it's like, this is old school Alaska, and then we're like the new breed. And the old, it's almost like we had ghosts watching us as our crowd.
That's cool.
Because it's very few people that actually like cheer and come out to be cold on the sidelines watching our events. So we kind of imagined that we were being watched by these ghosts in this mining town, and that was enough for us to keep us going. And we just loved it. Like we don't need, the media. We don't need anything besides just us and breathing hard, snow conditions, and just looking forward to the future and where this is going to bring us. There's just so many things there. I don't even know how to describe the whole picture, but I hope I've done a good job at giving you that story of experience of what it's like to be on skis in that context.
One thing it makes me think of is the few times in my life when I was doing a sport that I had trained enough for, and the whole body's working hard, the lungs are pumping, the heart's pumping, but it feels good. It's like, I'm strong enough to do this, and look what I can do. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's the moments that you're gonna never regret. It's painful, like physically when you're there, but they're the most emotionally rewarding and memorable. So the harder that you work physically, the more mentally strong you're going to be. And just like with muscle structure, it's breaking it down to have it recover, which makes it stronger later after the recovery. So you need that to be stronger, and the sport just breathes that.
Well, you make me long for it even more. I can't wait to get out on my mountain bike again. And it's the end of the ski season in Colorado, which is a bummer, because now I want to start Nordic skiing more. I could still get in probably another 4 weeks, but wow.
Yeah, well, I'm coming out there to spend 2-3 weeks in Colorado and then another 2 weeks in Idaho. I'll be out there at the end of April, early May.
Right on. Where are you going to be?
Yep. Well, I'm going to start in Monument and then go up to Boulder and then make my way west towards Utah. And I'll be going through like Frisco and Breckenridge and might even go to Leadville. I've contacted quite a few high schools and some ski clubs out there. So I'll be making my way through the state.
That's awesome. Well, maybe we'll be able to catch you on your way through.
I've always known wrong from right, for the dark run into the light. I try to run and I try to hide.
You know, it's a great time to ask, if people are interested in trying this sport and they haven't done it before, how do they get started? What do they do?
Well, I guess if they're like an absolute beginner, they don't have any equipment, then I would say, go to a ski shop and get outfitted with the first pick your boot. Boot's the most important thing. Get your feet warm, your feet comfortable, and then get a good pole, which is your second most important thing, and then get a ski in that order. So, there are a lot of ski shops in Colorado, but make sure you go to a good one that has good cross-country equipment. And if they can rent stuff, that's a good way of trying it out first. Well, there's a lot of rental shops now to get a feeling of it. And they also often give lessons and things at a lot of these Nordic centers. So I would suggest looking them up in their area and going from there.
What I love about the Nordic centers, too, is that the pricing is less than downhill skiing, alpine skiing. If you want to go skiing for a day, you want to learn something, you can get a package where they'd give you a lesson, they give you all the gear you need, and you're on groomed trails where you can really learn. And you're like, well, really, I can do all that for that price? It's cheap, really. It's affordable.
It is, yeah. And the equipment is comparable, too, with alpine. It's interesting. Alpine skis are about the same price, if not a little bit more than Nordic. And the alpine pole is way cheaper than the Nordic pole. But the boots are about the same price now, too. So the ski and the boot are about the same price. But the Nordic pole is a lot more. And that's what I make. And I'll tell you why the pole is worth more is because it's your main means of propulsion. You have to have a good Nordic pole to cross-country ski well. It's what you're carrying with your upper body, so it has to be lightweight. It's what you're pushing down with, so it has to be strong. It's what you're moving around, such big distances, so it has to swing well. It's what you're forcing through with your hand, so your strap has to have the right support. And if you're wearing a glove that's too thin because your hands are getting hot, you need a strap that's thermal. And if you have too thick of a glove, then your hands are going to sweat a lot, and your straps aren't going to fit properly. So there's a lot of features that we've put in there that cover the basics of cross country skiing well, and performance aspects, and the baskets too. If your pole is punching through the snow, even 6 inches, often they go through a foot or so because the grooming's on the top. It's hard packed and then it's soft underneath, or it's slushy, or if it's you get that sticky stuff where your baskets are grabbing. Like, we've made our baskets interchangeable, so you can put a bigger basket on there about 2 seconds and just swap them right out, and they fit your pocket well, so you can carry them. Nobody has an option like that. So all those features are so critical, and they're not offered with other brands. So that's the importance of making getting the right package. So boot, pole, ski.
Awesome. You and alpine skiing, whenever you go get some gear, the guys at the shop will say, all right, let's see if this is long enough. Okay, right size, go. That's what you get for the poles, right?
Yeah, well, alpine, you don't need a decent pole when you're just recreationally alpine skiing.
Right.
Because you don't really use them to have you move along the trail. You're basically holding them and just carrying them along, and use them seldomly. It's not a main means. If you were using your poles to go uphill, now you're talking, you got to get something that really makes sense.
Well, and that's where your company comes in, because you're the coach, you're the guy who knows the techniques and what makes this stuff work, so you're making the right kind of pole for Nordic skiing. And I just wanted to make that contrast, because people often think of ski poles as, well, no one fusses over ski poles. But we're talking about Nordic ski poles. Big difference there.
Yes, and that's what we specialize in. So we're one of those companies that's really small. We're not big in advertising, but we make a really good product. We put our money into our product, not in the advertising.
And the name of the company is United States Ski Pole Company. And how can people find out more information about it?
usskipoles.com. So it's USSKI poles.com. That's our website, and you'll see all the information. We've got nice YouTube videos showing you how to use the features and how the features will benefit you.
So if people wanted to take part in one of your clinics, then how would they find out where you're going to be when?
Yeah, right now we haven't posted our schedule for the summer online yet. I've got some opportunities overseas that might take place here, so I don't want to put anything out there yet for the summer. But so the best thing is to write us directly and request one. So we've got some of those in the past, and we've showed up to every one of them. So luckily, we've got info at US Ski Poles is our website. Email address. We also have like the little contact us page. You can just fill in your information and we'll get back to you. And say where you're at, how big of a group you have, or if it's just you, that's fine too. We'll look at a way of meeting at some point and doing either a technique analysis, or we will if you want to just try the stuff out. Often we've had some people contact us saying that they like to demo our product. Well, we have a whole demo fleet. We've got 5 reps around. So often we can just connect them up with a rep that they can get their stuff, or we're so small and nimble that we've sent product without even knowing the customer in an area where we don't have a rep. Say, here's a pair of poles, fit to your size, try them out. If you don't like them, ship them back. If you like them, you can buy them.
Well, tell us a little bit about your poles, because I know that they're unique. They're made in the U.S. That's another important thing. But what makes your pole really unique? You mentioned the interchangeable baskets, the better strap designs.
Sure. Our poles are the only poles in the world that have a 2-year warranty, and the only American-made option. They also are very, very lightweight. We make some of the lightest poles in the world, and they're very stiff. So that's the 2 main ingredients that people look for in poles, and they're priced well. We're over $100 less per pair than our competition is. So either you can buy a competitor's product that's made in China for $100 to $150 more, or you can buy ours, which is American-made, supporting over 120 American jobs for less, that has a warranty. It's really a no-brainer. So the other main features of our poles, besides the weight and the stiffness, is the strap component. The straps are all adjustable. Nobody has this option but us, and there's 4 different settings. So small, medium, large, and extra large. Just by a clip on the back of the strap itself allows that. So when you change your glove size or go without gloves altogether, you can make that happen in seconds. There's no messing around with any wedges or any fabrics that you have to move around, which is a really fussy thing to get set just right. Just like moving your seat in your car. When somebody changes the settings on your seat, it's very difficult to find that right space, and it is that critical to have that set right. And then the other point too about our straps is that they're thermal. We sew these ourselves here in Michigan. We work with a mentally disabled group here that cuts all of our fabrics, and we have a sewing agency just in charge of sewing all those. So there's about 25 people that are involved with the sewing of those straps, and it's the highest quality, double Rainier ripstop nylon. And there's also a property in there that keeps it really, really warm. So you really don't have to worry about getting cold fingers anymore, because it covers all the blood vessels in the back of your hand. And I knew that was the biggest component to make this thing, the connection that people will have right away. And the straps, the grips themselves too, are made of a different material than the cork that everyone else gives you. So you go into a ski shop, every grip that is on the shelf will chafe your gloves or give you blisters. And I start out with, asking anybody who works in the shop, say, hey, show me a grip right here that doesn't chafe your gloves or give you blisters. And it's really obvious to see the companies that offer these, they also sell gloves because they want you to burn gloves.
So it's sandpaper grip, man. We got you covered.
Exactly. And people are buying it because it's the only option. So now we have an anti-chafing grip. It sounds like minimal, but it will actually save you money in the long run. And we shape them in a way that you can get more grip out of the pole. And that's one feature that they've completely overlooked. So there's a reason why the European name brands are making their boots in Europe, and they're making their skis in Europe. But when it comes to the poles, they're just having the Chinese do it. That's a huge, huge market that we can take over right there. And we're able to innovate. They can't. You know how it is with getting stuff from China.
Right.
Nothing against those nice Chinese people, but I mean, they're totally undercutting the market by having them do it over there. And I think the European companies don't know how to make poles. I'm sure they could figure it out, but heck, we can do it all right here, and we're doing it for cheaper than they are.
Very cool. So United States Ski Pole Company, that's where you get the poles if you want the real deal.
Yep, and we also have 52 dealers across the U.S. and Canada. So if we prevent from underselling them, so we actually have our prices on our website are $10 more, and you have to pay for shipping and wait the time for them to be shipped. So we really like to promote our other American businesses. We're really about reshoring and restoring American jobs, and we really want to help cross-country skiing grow, and that means that our ski shops need to be supported. So we promote our ski shops by having a slightly higher price online. So if you do have a local shop, we'd like you to go and buy it from them before you come to us. But if there's not one available, then you have to go to us. We do have some sponsorship packages available too, for anybody in any age, and they're not performance-based too. So if you fit that criteria, we can send you an application, and we're always looking at them every day.
That's awesome. Well, back to just the love of the sport, something I want to throw out there is that a lot of people haven't learned how to enjoy their winters. They sit around for the winter, waiting for the summer to arrive so they can go do what they love to do again. And they get cabin fever, and they lose some of their fitness level, and then spring comes, and it's like, trying all over again. I think people really need a winter sport that they can love and get enthusiastic about. And I throw that out there because Nordic skiing, in my mind, is an excellent option. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can do it all over the United States. If you have snow, you can do this, right?
Yep, sure can. And once you got the equipment, you can just roll her out right out your door. And going down even just a 3-foot hill is a thrill.
That's awesome. I love the idea of sports that are accessible for everyone. And like I said, you have to be where there's snow. But besides that, and I guess in the summer you can still do this with the roller skis, right?
Yep, we have a full fleet of roller skis we're importing from Canada. They're a wonderful way of continuing on your fitness and learning more skills, getting stronger. There's people that don't even race that roller ski all the time. The biggest roller ski market right now that's growing in population is in London. And they have no intent on actually ever owning a pair of skis.
Right.
They just love roller skiing, and they love roller skiing in big groups. They're taking over London in packs.
That's great. Well, roller skiing looks like a ton of fun, but I've not done it. How similar is it to Nordic skiing on the snow?
It's like the difference between ice skating and rollerblading. You have more bumps, but you can still enjoy it. There are no brakes with roller skis, at least the most common ones. But you find ways of slowing yourself down. You're a lot more alert to what's coming in front of you and your overall speed around you. You can take S turns, or I often put one roller ski into the on the grass. Like if I'm on a bike path, you often have grass next to you, or a little dirt path. You keep one on the track and then one on the grass, and that'll slow you down, a little bit of a dampener. If you really needed to slow down, but no, otherwise it's really similar. I'd say it's the best comparison you're going to get.
That's fun. So you can make it a year-round sport, or you could even do this sport where there is no snow. That could happen.
Yep.
I love it. We're about out of time here, but I'll bet you have another story for us. Maybe something inspirational or funny that would be about Nordic skiing.
See, this involves me in a town called Homer, Alaska. I was a junior in high school, and I developed some shoulder injury before the ski season. So I decided not to use my poles in the race, and I started with a friend's pair of poles that, and this was about 20 years ago now, but I started with a friend's pair of poles, and we were in a mass start, and I had a double pole about 100 meters to start the course with everyone else, and I ended up breaking that one of the poles off the start line, and I ended up throwing the poles off to the side anyway, and I skied about 5 kilometers into the race with the lead pack without poles. I was having so much fun, and I expected to be more toward the back, but because I had that handicap of not having poles, I just felt it was just, hey, I got nothing to lose. I can have a lot of fun here. And it was just so thrilling. I just kept it going and kept it going. And I said, well, hey, maybe I can win this thing. It'll be amazing. To not have both. And so I took the lead. It was a 10K, and I took the lead at about 5K in. And and Homer has some really unusual terrain. There's a lot of tundra and like frost heaves. So there's a lot of like rolling terrain, like really short, steep little hills.
Right.
Like your ski has a hard time flexing because it's so, like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. These little hills that you're more like bumps, like you see a BMX park. And one of my skis ended up breaking in half.
Oh no.
And I had about 3 kilometers left, and I had, no poles and one good ski. And I thought, this is just unbelievable. So having as much fun as more fun than I would ever have imagined that day. I had one of my most memorable events. Just I had nothing to lose and everything to gain from it, and I ended up winning the race. It was just unbelievable.
Now, how do you win a race with a broken ski? Tell us how that happened.
Well, I had such high fitness from running too that related well into my lower body, because I didn't have to use my upper body at all, without using poles. So,
did you have enough ski left that you could kind of use it, or did you have to kick the thing off and just kind of?
No, it was still with me. Like the tail broke right behind my heel, so it was kind of flipped up near my calf. So I had the front end of it, but the back end was just kind of like hanging out back there, and so I could use it in some parts, like to push off on the side a little bit here and there, but I used mostly my other foot, kind of like a skateboard.
Right.
So that was a really fun event.
What did people say about that? I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I don't know. Some of the officials almost wanted to disqualify me because, almost an act of showing off.
You're like, well, hey, what do you do?
Yeah. Like, what is this? Did he cheat? I mean, how did this isn't even possible. But I took a bad situation and I just turned it into a really positive thing, which I wasn't even expecting. So yeah, those days which are great and things. So yeah, even my athlete that I worked with in Peru, he qualified for Sochi, and I went with him to the Russian Olympics there in Sochi. And 3 weeks before his race, we were out in Austria, and he fell on a real sharp corner going downhill in the Alps there, and he broke his rib and fractured a few others.
Wow.
So after talking with him, I'm like, what do you got to lose? Like, here you've got a broken rib, you got a race in the Olympics. We've been training for the last 4 years. You got thousands of people in your country that are looking up to you, because he's the first Winter Olympian of all time from Peru. He went to Vancouver as well as his first Olympics, but I taught him how to classic ski. So there's been a lot of work put into this thing, and he was ready to quit. But I kind of using my experience and saying, this could be a lot of fun. It's going to be painful, especially breathing at that altitude and those huge hills that we had to ski in Russia. But I said, people are going to look up to you even more if you compete in this. He could have done the 1.8K sprint and just got the same title as as an Olympic athlete at the Sochi Games. But no, he chose to do the event that he originally signed up for, the 15K.
Wow.
And I really feel proud of him for the technique that he was able to maintain, his background and all the work that he endured, and then the injury on top of that. Just really, it really shows you how dedicated he was. And in all fairness to my athlete from Mexico that competed in PyeongChang, he slipped right when we were walking out of the wax room to go do our warm up, and he really hurt his ankle. I mean, it swelled up, and we're looking at it, and we have an hour till the start.
Oh.
You know, what are you going to do? You know, he really should not have competed, but it's the Olympic Games, and you know, this is one time every 4 years, and he worked, you know, the last year just to get there, and it's like you're going to have to race injured. You know, I don't know it's just a parallel between the two guys that I coached. They both started the race injured. They're both 43. They're both from, you know, these small nations that don't have teams, and they both met Dario Colonia at the finish line. They both finished last. You know, I don't know what it is.
Well, the beautiful thing is, though, that you've got the great attitude about it, and that's something I have to highlight. You know, your ski broke, your shoulder was injured, you ended up without poles, and you decided, well, I'm just going to have fun then, and you won the race. And part of that is because you had the right attitude, and that's what you were encouraging with your guys, you know, at the Olympics as well. Hey, have the right attitude. Make the most of this experience, you know? And I think that's so beautiful. That applies to all of life. That's not just about Nordic skiing, is it?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, either of those guys could have said, oh, I'm done. I'm taking my excuse. I don't have to compete. You know, they got their ticket to the Olympics, and they could have just walked off the course. But no, they had that attitude that, no, I'm going to do this no matter what. I don't care if I'm, you know, we got all their limbs cut off. They're going to inch their way with their chin to get to the, you know, start of the finish line. That's an extreme look at it, but they were going to do it no matter what, and no matter how long it took them to get to the finish line, they were going to do it. And that's the type of people that I like to work with. I get people wanting me to coach them from all these nations from all over the planet, and I will only work with people that are that dedicated, that really love the sport, and they do it for the right reasons, not just for the glory of the title. So it's a big difference. And some people have come at me as a coach, you know, representing guys like that don't finish in the, you know, in the top 30. You know, they just think it's unfair for guys that are finishing that many minutes back from the leaders. I mean, granted, my guys were both injured, but it's their story of where they come from, the requirements that they met, and they're there. I mean, if anybody had their background and had a lot more struggles to achieve what they had to endure to get there, they wouldn't be saying that. And I know these guys' stories, and there's a lot of people out there that didn't make it, that I could have coached to make it. Just not enough time in the day, and I'm only one person. So, I do what I can, and I'm looking at some opportunities right now in a greater sense to help more, because I feel that's kind of like my calling, my passion, is leading me towards helping a greater number learn the sport in countries that don't have the coaching support that this nation has, that Canada has, that the European nations and Scandinavian has.
Right. It reminds me of Cool Runnings, of course. Right?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Sled, you know, and they should make a movie out of what you're doing too. I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah. You have Eddie Eagle, and I mean, there's some other ones that have kind of come through. But one thing too, like with our nation in its current state, and with political parties and this and that, like me helping Mexico, it hit greater for Mexico, having an American coach and helping them, rather than just looking at deporting all of them. You know,
right.
And with all the racism we have in this country, you know, I feel more proud to stand up and say, you know, I don't care what color skin they have. I'm going to help them out and make them the best cross-country skier they can be, because they want to be a cross-country skier. I don't care where they come from or who they are. If they really want to become a cross-country skier and make the best and represent their nation, I'm going to help them do it.
I love it. That's a beautiful way to wrap up the show right there. So thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today about cross-country skiing, Nordic skiing. I think it's great.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So United States Ski Pole Company, usskipoles.com. Andy Liebner, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, hey, I think that this Nordic skiing thing might be something you haven't thought of. It might be a great way to get out and enjoy your winters and your summers too on those roller skis. So until the next show, give it a thought and make sure you do get out there. Have some fun.
Yep, you won't regret it. It's the best thing you ever decide to do.
Hey, if you're enjoying the Adventure Sports Podcast, would you do us a big favor and head on over to our site to adventuresportspodcast.com and click that Become a Patron button? For a mere $5 a month, you can help support the show. That's like the cost of one Amazon movie, for one weekend night. So think about helping us out. We love to bring the inspiration and motivation to you guys. It's hard work. We want to keep it going, and we can always use your support. Thanks for listening, guys, and get out there and have some fun.